It's funny, man. I definitely grew up, like, uh, the 1 day a week Christian, where it's like you're a
Yeah.
Christian 1 day a week because your mom makes you go to church and you hate it.
Yeah.
And, I think, by the time I got to high school, it was like, I'm not gone anymore. Then I got into college and I was like, I haven't like explored this truthfully yet. So gave it another go. And then when I started dating Laura, her whole family come from the church, Southern Baptist. Like her
Yeah.
grandpa was a huge deal in the Southern Baptist church. They're deeply, deeply religious. Her parents are very, very Christian. Her sisters. So it's like a way of life. And like we were chatting when I came back from Thailand about this whole Buddhism thing, and I'm like, it's just so funny to me how like sometimes Christianity wants to tell you the only way through is with God or with Jesus or whatever. And for some people that like clicks and that works right away, but like for others it can create this torturous relationship where it just compounds the suffering because if that doesn't work right away, then it's like, well, am I doing something wrong or am I a sinner or like all of these other anxieties come in and it's like you know, it's so difficult if that's the only thing that you know and it doesn't work right away.
Yeah. I was thinking about this week actually, because, having grown up in the church and then, when I was a little older, I got involved in worship team. I started playing music and then I
Yeah.
started playing in a band, and so then church kind of tied into the band thing too. Um, but I was thinking about this sort of, just the sort of attitude that you get from people that are like regular churchgoers, right? It's like not everybody, right? I won't
Uh-huh.
cast
Sure.
a broad brush over everyone,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've had enough. I've played at over 500 churches across the country, in
That's so
worship
crazy.
teams and youth groups. So I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of churches, and I've seen a lot of staffs and a lot of pastors and a lot of
Yeah.
worship teams and all that stuff. And I think this is what makes it hard to be open to things, right? Is you get this idea and you want to convince other people that the idea is right because you're
Yes.
convinced that it's right.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so when you decide, well, these are the nature of my convictions. I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to smoke, I'm not going to listen to music with bad language,
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to, go to nightclubs or whatever. Whatever it is that you decide, right?
Yep.
These are the list of no-nos for you. And then you
Yeah.
go, I'm going to sacrifice these things in my life because I believe that's what God wants. And then you go, okay, now Kris, you should not drink and you shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't use bad language. And then you go, well, I'm not convicted about that. And then I go, I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I have chosen more
Yeah.
suffering than you in my life. Right. And it's
Right.
like, you can choose to make yourself suffer in an infinite number of ways in this life that are completely inappropriate for everyone else and probably for
Right.
you. Um,
Right. The suffering
and
isn't the
why? Like,
merit in and
why?
of
What
itself.
right, if it's without purpose, it's stupid, right? It's
Yeah.
and it ultimately it becomes a choice. Um,
Yeah.
to me, like, that's the hard time that I have with it now is like, okay, I don't believe in there's a principle in the Christian church about tithing,
Uh-huh.
which if you're uninitiated, it's about they teach in church that you're supposed to give 10% of your money, 10% of everything you bring in. You're supposed to take the first 10% off the top and give it back to God. But the problem is that that was a very specific practice in the Old Testament to make sure that the Levite priests could do commit themselves full time to being priests, and they didn't have to worry about going to get jobs or trying to find food or whatever, right? It was just they were going to be the priests, so it was very specific for that. But we don't. Then this is the thing, right? So then you get Jesus in the story, comes and he takes that place. You no longer need a priest to intercess on your behalf to God. You can go straight through Jesus to God, right? Well, the Catholics don't believe that, or
Yeah.
at least some Catholics don't believe that, right? So like, because I've talked to a lot of different Catholics and some of them believe that and some don't, right? So the and even within like the Christian orthodoxy, there's like there's hundreds of denominations, and every one of them is convinced that the way that they do church and they do God is the right way. Um, but I think that the problem with that is that it's way more focused on the building and not enough on the foundation, right? It's like when we talk about what do you need to survive versus what do you need to be comfortable, right?
Uh,
The essence of it is if God created you and God gave you the rights, then they are inalienable from you because they come
yeah.
from a source that's higher than everybody. We're all on the same level, right? We're all created in the same image. We're supposed to love each other and we're supposed to take care of each other and we're supposed to, but nobody does that. And then it becomes a thing of
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, well, I don't do that, but I suffer in this way,
Yeah.
right?
It
Well, I
it
don't I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it does remind me a little bit of like, as I've been learning about this, the Buddhist philosophy, this notion of like merit making. And my first reaction when I saw it was like, oh, this is just like tithing. But I think one of the differences that I'm noticing is that like what I always struggled with growing up in the church when it came to tithing was the notion of the focus of the tithing was it is
Mhm.
almost like a contract and there's an amount. And those things are
Right.
mandates from your deity.
Yep.
Whereas the
Yeah.
way that I'm learning about this like merit making and this Buddhist philosophy is that it's more about the spiritual intent. And there's different ways of doing merit making and based on like the different like branch of Buddhist philosophy that someone belongs to, there are different ways of doing it. But an example in one of the Buddhist lines of thinking or philosophy is that you can have merit making simply by not doing harm, not killing, not stealing, not lying, so on and so forth. Like that is a way to build merit. Why? Because the intent is around the spiritual positivity that you're putting into the world. There's this notion of
Mm.
giving and the act of generosity or altruism, donating money to temples or to causes. In Buddhist countries, giving to monks is seen as a very spiritual way of merit making. And it's like I read someone say it's almost like depositing positive energy into like a karmic bank account. And like right when they said that term, I was like, well, this is kind of bullshit. But like it just it's
The little
it's
mystic
fascinating.
part is where
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you
But it's like it's just fascinating to me that you can draw both parallels and clean distinctions between those two actions. And I always struggled with like the like approach to tithing because it's like, well, all you're doing is just supporting the church institution. And if, like you said, it's the building, not the house. Well, if the church is flawed
Right.
and full of people that are, perhaps not making the best choices.
Humans.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
even if their intentions are good, right? Like the thing is, eh, why can't I just take that money and go buy someone I know is struggling a meal or pay one of their bills or, or buy them a set of
Right.
tires or like, why can't I
Right.
just do that? Why do I have
Right.
to go and give it to this guy who's going to use
Right.
part of it hopefully for good, but also part of it to pay his rent and part of it to buy his car and like
Yeah.
those things aren't even biblical.
No.
Like the congregation supporting your lifestyle is not biblical. So, and then, I mean, we can like, obviously I've spent a lot of time studying, religion and arguing with people about it, so I have
Yeah.
a lot of feelings about it. But I always think it's fascinating, how keen the church always was to say it's not enough to be a good person. It's not enough just to be a
Yeah,
good
right.
person.
Right.
And and then all the best people I knew wanted nothing to do with the church, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, okay, well,
Yeah.
I think there's a correlation there, and no, a sad
I
one, unfortunately.
right. Right. I mean,
Um,
it's the example of the Philistines. And it's funny too, because I think in a lot of a lot of modern evangelicalism evangelicalism, like the entire
all these
presupposition
fun
is
words.
I know. The entire presupposition is based on the idea that we know we are right because we're followers of Christ. And our evangelical philosophy forces us to go to people who are not and convince them of their wrong ways. And so you
Right,
build this identity and this culture of being correct. And that identity consumes you and takes over every choice that you've made. So now it's no longer about a theology or a religion, but you're rooting for the right sports team and the other person isn't. You're making the right
right.
choices on the brand of soda you choose to drink. You're making better choices on the car you choose to drive or whatever books you want to read. And anybody who comes up to you and says, "Oh my gosh, I think you would really like this car. It's so fun. It's got, all of the features that you love." But you're sitting there going like, "Well, they're not a Christ follower and I know they're not a Christ follower. And I know I'm right. So there's no way in hell I'm driving a foreign car." And it's just like you run into these weird like attitudes where it's
And they're like, "Oh,
consuming.
you don't wanna drive that car? Well, you're going to hell then." You're like, "What?
Right. Yeah. Like how are those two things
What?"
connected? Yes. I have
And how
I
can
have
you even be satisfied with that, right? How can you be satisfied with that knowledge? Right? You can smugly
totally
say to me that you accept that I'm going to burn eternally because I don't believe the
right.
same exact thing as you. Like, you're okay with that?
Right.
Like, I'm not saying that it's justified. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying if that's the case, if you believe that a eternal torment is what's waiting for me if I don't believe what you believe, and I'm you, I think I'm going to kill myself trying to make you understand the truth and
Yeah.
love you out of whatever I need to because I don't want that
Right.
to happen to you. Right? But
I
instead we're like, well, I found the good way and so I don't,
right.
good luck to you. And it's like, do
It's
you
yes.
understand the
Yes.
ramifications of what you're saying when you tell someone to go to
Right.
hell? Like,
Yeah.
dude, come
Eh,
on.
I mean, like, it's just like, pray the gay away, right? It's so dumb to me. And I think, like, it's what I find so fascinating about, like, beginning to learn about, like, the Buddhist philosophy coming back from this trip is that, like, it doesn't force you into a box with the way that you're thinking, and it doesn't try to convince you that this is the only way or the only path. What it
Yeah.
says is, just try it, explore it, learn about it, and if you find benefit from it, that means that you're on the path already, right? There's no notion like of worship the creator or you're doomed to an eternal life in flame. And so
Right,
I think that's
right.
that's really an interesting counterpoint because you can take a look at all deity-based religions and Western Christianity is going to sit there and say murder is bad. Why? Because my God told me it was. Well, what if there's somebody that walks up and says murder is good? And you go, why? And they said, because my God told me. How, who's correct in that? In
Well,
that
I mean, we
hypothetical?
that is a very real situation happening in the world right now, right? Like
Exactly.
there are world religions that are in vast opposition to each other and somebody's wrong, right? Like
Right.
so if only one person's right, then everyone else is wrong.
Right.
Um That's pretty wild to me, and I'm not saying again, there are certainly explanations for some of that, and there's scripture that talks
Sure.
about it. I think that the more you open yourself to broad possibilities and start really finding out what's actually going on rather than just what's on the spoon that they're putting in your mouth, like one I mean, honestly, because, you know, I used to fight people passionately about religious things that right now I'm ashamed that I even believed them, but I
Yeah.
believed them because someone who I trusted told me, and they were told by someone else, and someone else told them, and you just end up down this line. Um, but I think that even like modern day events are fascinating. I think that finding ancient ruins and being able to see that there are congruent stories in multiple different civilizations, that like the worldwide flood story, for example, is
Yeah.
present in cultures all over the world, right? And none of them are saying the other story isn't true, right? They are all
Right.
just corroborating with each other that this happened. um
Right.
I think there's a lesson there, right? And I think there's a lesson in God's nature, and also in control and how it's used and the agendas behind it and what's the purpose of it. And ultimately what it comes down to is you just have to examine your own heart, and what we talk about all the time, I believe it wholeheartedly. You have to be able to sit down and have brutal, honest self-evaluation and really spend time. This is, if you think that there are important things to think about, it seems like, trying to find out, have an understanding of how your creator might be like an important thing to try to come to terms with, right? No matter where you land, right? I mean, that seems kind of,
Yep.
it seems kind of
Yep.
big. Yeah, well, welcome to another episode of Sweeter After
I know,
Difficulty,
right?
everybody.
20 minutes later.
I'm leaving, I'm leaving it all in. I love it. I thought that was great. That was a great way to
Yeah.
start the show.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
shoot, I
so
could talk about that stuff for ages.
No, man, for sure, for sure. So, everybody that's watching, as you can see, my guest today is the one and only Kris Anderson. Um, we realized, that we had not done a one-on-one with Kris, and
Yeah.
so uh, what I really want is for you all to have a better understanding of, number one, why Kris is one of the people on this podcast, but also just, I like everybody to get to know about the people that are close to me, what I know about them, and have a little better understanding of why I'm close to them too. So thanks for being here, man. I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of put a little bit more of a linear spin on your story.
I know.
Uh for the folks at home, take us back a little bit. What was family life like when you were a kid? You got siblings? Where are you from? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
start at the beginning.
Start at the start. So,
Yeah.
born and raised in the Bay Area in California, in the South Bay. And I have two younger brothers and a younger sister, so we have a pretty big family. Um, and I grew up right around like the .com 1.0 bubble and really the formation of Silicon Valley. And it was fascinating to look back on in retrospect to see what would turn into a historical flashpoint in the creation of the technological world that we live in now, because I have so many distinct memories from like the early 90s with my kitchen table or dining room table just covered in electronics. And my dad is a software engineer, an inventor, founder. And so a lot of my early childhood was shaped by, doing the normal, going to school and playing sports and that kind of thing. And then coming home and kind of seeing like what he was building. What are you working on? Um, so it was an interesting childhood. I mean, I grew up down the street from Steve Wozniak. I played Little League baseball with his kids,
Right.
and then the bubble burst and there was some panic. Kind of threw everything into a bit of a tailspin. So, um,
Yeah, if you know your history. What kind of personality type is your dad?
He is a classic software engineer, like the stereotype that you could imagine for a software engineer. Very, very bright, very problem solving focused, and is a dog with a bone if he doesn't understand something. And it really doesn't matter in
Mm.
what domain, but he has to figure it out on his own. And so, if you could imagine like the concept of the DIY guy, except applying it to virtually anything, that's kind of the way that he approached life. And so, growing up through childhood, like we had a joke in my family where if we needed to ask dad for help with the homework, the first thing that he would say is, "Where's your scratch paper?" And we would have to get out a piece of scratch paper. And it didn't matter if it was history or reading or math or science, didn't matter what the subject was, get out a scratch paper and then fill it up. And then when you're done filling it up, I'll come back and help you maybe. And so it's like the idea was figure it out, you know, and if you
Yeah, if you
can't,
can take enough of the right notes, you should be able to figure this out without me.
exactly. So
That's great. That's
he would
so
go
good.
up and tinker, and shoot, we were making video games on computers in like 1994, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
dating myself, but uh, yeah,
No, that's insane though. So obviously, that's an interesting personality for a dad, for a parental figure, right?
yeah,
Do you find how much of that do you find was imprinted on you? Like, are you
yeah.
somewhat of that, or like
I
what
am,
kind of
and
stuck?
yeah, I have to figure it out on my own or it doesn't count thing is 100% what stuck. And I think that explains nowadays my obsession with mediocre jujitsu because it's it will
Like,
be in
Chris,
that.
maybe you should do it this way, and you're like, no.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly right. No, I'll figure it out on my own, you know.
Yeah,
Um
yeah,
but I mean, it's funny, we bought our house in 2016 up here in Sacramento, and I couldn't tell you the difference between a screwdriver and a hammer. Um and when we bought our house, my wife's uncles were home builders and they came in and helped us do some renovation and stuff. And they
yeah,
put some tools in my hand and they told me what they were called and what they did, and they're like, here's the type of cuts that you need to make on these materials. Now go do it. And I'm like, okay, but what if I do it wrong? And they're like, it doesn't matter. It's your house now. Like,
yeah,
and that dawning realization of like, oh, I can figure this out. And the only person at risk is me. So,
yeah,
um, that kind of attitude of like, I think I can figure this out definitely stuck. And
yeah.
I enjoy that process.
What about mom?
Yep, stay-at-home mom. My mom was chauffeur extraordinaire for
Yeah.
everybody. I mean, there was a point where
Yeah.
like my brothers and I all had to be at different places at the same time, and I have no idea
Mm.
what, you know, the magic trick that she pulled off, but um she got us to all of those places. I mean, I was playing sports, I was doing music. My brothers were both playing sports, they were also doing music. And then my sister is 12 years younger than I am. So,
Mm.
shoot, what is that? I was in eighth grade, I think.
Junior high.
Yeah, when she was born. So now layer on a
Yeah.
baby on top of doing all that stuff too. So
Woo.
yeah, mom was always around, and
Yeah.
it was pretty cool.
So, what kind of sports were you guys playing?
I played all of the major like sports. Again, very mediocre. But I was a football player, basketball, baseball, hockey. Those were the big sports.
Oh, okay.
I I deeply regret not getting into grappling. Deeply, deeply regret. Um,
Mm, mhm.
and I remember in fifth grade, like we were playing touch football at recess and stuff. And I was always really small, very much like a late bloomer. Not so much now at 6'1", but back in the day, I was the little kid. I was always like a runt.
Yeah.
and no one would pick me because they thought that like you had to be big to be good at flag football. And I was like, oh, I'll
Mhm.
show them. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna tell my parents to sign me up for tackle football. And so I had this grand idea of like, I'm gonna do football because I wanted to prove to the other kids at recess that I was tough.
Mm.
Um, lo and behold, I broke my arm in the first season. So got plenty of
That'll
opportunity.
show 'em.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe that was the other thing that stuck was my like penchant for getting hurt. That hasn't changed at all.
You're like, "You guys wanna sign my cast?"
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so I didn't play a ton of sports when I was a kid, but my mom was a single mom, and she got remarried when I was just about 10, and the guy she married was super into boxing and, and Bruce Lee movies, right? So,
Uh,
we were always watching boxing, and, they got us into, like, taekwondo and stuff when we were young. Actually, fun fact, when I was really young, my grandma was next door neighbors with Dave Kovar, and, so
who's
if
that?
you've ever heard of Kovar's taekwondo or Kovar's kempo,
Oh, right.
like,
Yes.
Kovar's is a major, martial arts branch up in especially up here in Northern California. Um, he and his brother were teaching karate out of his garage back then. So,
Oh, wow.
not to date
Wow.
myself as well, Chris, just want to make you feel a little better.
So wait,
But
you
we
were
didn't
doing like boxing and kempo?
not Kempo, like Dave was funny. Dave was like really serious about he'd always be like, "All right, I'm gonna I'm gonna show you this trick to block a punch, okay? But you got to promise me you're only ever gonna use this in defense. Like you can't use this stuff I teach you to, like he was super into it, even just
Sure,
like
Dave.
as a neighbor, like as a neighbor.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his brother, who was like his business partner, is over here like shotgunning beers and smashing the cans on his forehead and stuff. You're like, okay, what is this dynamic? It was super awesome.
It's like,
Uh,
let me introduce you to yin and yang.
yeah, yeah, like it'd be like me and my brother starting a martial arts school, legitimately.
Right. Right.
Um, but
How cool.
so we did that. We only did that for a little while, but I actually went like my dad took me down to Stockton Boulevard and found a little boxing gym, a little sweaty hole in the wall, and
Yeah.
we learned how to box. We always had bags at home, and we would I would throw gloves on with him or with any of our friends that came over. He always put gloves on us and was just like, "Hey, who wants to box?" Like it just for his entertainment.
Yeah.
Him and his friends would sit there and drink beer and watch the kids beat the hell out of each other.
I mean, that
Uh,
sounds like a win-win, right? Like you get
I
beer,
mean,
the kids
dude,
get
it was
tired,
great.
right?
I would whoop all my brother's friends' asses, and then
You get to do whatever
and
you want after that.
to this day, and it was never intentional, but to this day, the hardest punch I've ever taken in the face was boxing with my dad.
That's
He
so
and
funny.
he would pull punches and I would step into things and just like I totally learned how not to step into punches by getting my bell rung by my dad when I was a kid. We were boxing and he'd go,
I
oh my gosh, like don't tell your mom.
I
Um
have absolutely zero experience with that except for as a 40-year-old man last month
yeah.
when
Yeah,
I
I
went
want to
to
talk about that
Thailand.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I
okay.
want to talk
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
But before Thailand.
Yes.
Okay,
Preceding
so
30 some odd years.
yeah. So were you a good student in school? Like was it
Yeah.
important to get good grades?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of pressure to be academically successful growing up. Um, and I kind of had a little bit of a childhood rebellion against that.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I think I set myself back, but I was the kind of kid who didn't ever do their homework. Um, because I maybe related to the whole scratch paper thing, but I just was like, forget it. Like I'll figure it out when I have to. And
Yeah.
I would show up and on test day and ace the test. And so I
Bro,
wound up in
I
the
knew we were
I
brothers. I
know.
knew we were removed for a reason. That's just it's my
Right.
you're telling my story, bro. I'm telling you.
I I could not stand studying. I couldn't I
Yeah.
just I hated all of it, and I wanted to rebel against the system, and then I would sit there and be like, "See, Imma prove you wrong. Like, I don't need to do
Yeah.
any of this stuff," and I would nail the test and be okay. And, so yeah, I mean, academics, like, I was a like an A-minus student my entire life, and looking back, I'm like, if I woulda just sucked it up and done a little bit of homework, I would probably, like, woulda gotten into a better college, and I don't know how much would be different, but, like, my ego tells me that I probably should have done that, but,
Yeah.
here we
Here
are.
we are.
Yeah. I remember I remember taking the PSATs, and I got some, like again, no studying, I got some wild score, and then I got solicitations from tons and tons of universities, and it was my first, like, aha, I'm like, "Oh, man, maybe I should actually try," and so we could, like, practicing for the SATs, taking SAT courses, and I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, "Oh, man, I'm gonna do so good. I'm gonna do so good." And lo and behold, you can't really teach yourself the skill of studying as a senior in high school if you haven't done it at all. Um,
Yeah.
so bombed the SATs, um, as a result. Um, yeah,
Dude, I
lesson for
was
the kids at home, don't do that.
y yeah. Here's another cautionary tale. In our senior year, we had 2 classes that we had to take, right? So you had to take American government and you had to take economics.
Yeah.
And I hated the econ class so bad. I hated it so bad. And so I cut it all the time. And unfortunately, I was not keeping track of how often I cut it. Um, and so I come to class one day, it's getting near the end of the school year, and my teacher asked me to hang out after class. I was
Oh,
like, all
no.
right. So I came up and he goes, all right, here's the deal. You're allowed to miss 28 days in a semester, which I think is insane, right?
That's a
Like
lot. That's a big
a
number.
month, I'm allowed to miss a month of school, like in my senior year. But
Most
in
people
this
don't take that
semester,
much vacation.
dude, and he goes, you've missed 33 days of class
Oh, no.
and you missed 6 tests while you were out.
Ugh.
He said, where were you? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, bullshit, you were cutting my class. You were down at McDonald's and like you were doing whatever. He's like, you know what you were doing. I'm like, okay, all right.
Oh
So
my god.
he goes, I'm a sporting guy. So here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna come in at lunchtime tomorrow and you're gonna take all 6 tests. And if you ace all of those tests, I will give you a D plus and you can graduate with your class.
Holy crap. That's
When I say
insane.
that some life lessons should not be learned, right? Because I walked with my class, like I aced all 6 tests the next day at lunch, right? Like it
Oh my
having
god,
something like
dude.
that work out is terrible for instilling
Terrible
confidence in
validation.
someone who is
Oh,
it's a
horrible.
horrible bolster for your bad
This is what we call
habits.
the false positive to the extreme.
I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling and econ, what a
You'd
horrible subject.
you'd hope that
And
the minimum you'd walk away from that would be, like, a better idea of counting.
yes,
Like, I'm
yes.
at 26, maybe I just show up, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you're getting there, bro. You're about to I'm like, "Ah," and then where were you? I always thought that was the
Oh,
funniest
that's
thing.
so
"Where
good.
you been?"
My favorite part of that
I
whole
was like,
story
"We"
is he goes, "I'm a sporting man." Like, that's how you know whatever is about to happen next, you will never forget.
It's gonna be interesting. And, dude, like I said, I passed econ, I aced 6 tests in one day, and I graduated with my class, and now I have that funny story to tell. But I can tell you this, having already paid for all of my senior stuff and practiced the
Yeah.
graduation and done all that stuff and had family coming for
Yeah.
graduation and all that, and the possibility that in 2 days you were not gonna be walking across that stage,
Dude.
the way that, everybody expected you to, that also helped me a lot with my procrastination about things
Yeah.
like sucking it up and going, "Okay, I don't wanna do this," but
But I
it
gotta.
really wasn't learning. I love to learn and I love to read. I just have the hardest time being taught by other people when I think they don't care,
Yeah.
and
They're
I
not
felt
invested.
like my public school teachers for the most part did not care. A couple of examples, obviously, but most of them did not care. You could tell.
Yeah. Yep.
It was wild.
Yep. Similar. Similar.
Yeah, yeah. So, but the difference, I think, where our stories start to go is, um, I had no intention of going to college, because, I was like, "I cannot wait to be out of high school. I am not going to sign up for more college." Um,
Yeah.
but that is not where you went. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did
Yeah.
that start to shape where you went?
So it's funny. I mean, I'm the eldest of the cousins on both sides and the oldest sibling. And so I definitely carried a lot of like personal pressure to set the tone, set the example. And, I had a lot of education in my previous generation. So there was always just the assumption that you were going to secondary education. After I bombed the SATs because I didn't know how to study, I stayed home and I went to San Jose State. And thank God that I did. That was maybe the best thing that ever happened to me because ultimately it led me to meet my now wife and it kickstarted my career. And I spent the first couple of years not knowing, what the fuck I was gonna do with my life and kinda skating through. I think my freshman year, I averaged, like, Cs. I was like a 2.2 GPA, like, I was just a shitty student. And I had, like, a
Yeah,
lot of regret and going from, like, high school where I was, like, a 3.9 GPA without having to really work too hard to, like, a
yeah,
2.4 because I had a bad attitude while all my friends left and I was stuck at the at-home university, like, I just had a lot of apathy about it.
yeah.
Um, but the cool part is, like, I got to do the major that I loved, which was English Lit. Love reading, love books, love stories, like, to this day is one of my absolute favorite things, and it's stories in any media format, right? Movies, TV, books, whatever. But, going to school there, the first couple of years were really rough, and I had to do this, like, walkabout, because it was kinda lonely. I didn't feel, like, connected to anybody, and it wasn't that I was lacking for friends, I was just lacking for substance. Like, my college experience, the first 2, 3 years were lacking for substance, and then on a whim, I was like, "I'm gonna take 1 semester with no classes in my major and just explore other things." So I took, like, an intro to piano class, and I took, like, a
Hmm.
biology class, and I took a bunch of other stuff just to, like, do the Whitman sampler tray of learning for a semester. And
Right.
one of the courses I sampled was, Journalism 101,
Mm.
and, I fell in love. It was, like, the oddest marriage of all of my favorite things. It was storytelling, it was, that notion of, like, I can learn about something by myself and then tell other people about it. And then it was the pressure of a procrastination style deadline. This has to be done tonight because it's gonna run
Right,
tomorrow. And so we had to
right.
do I think we had to do like 2 stories in order to qualify for a grade in this class. And the stories were never
Mhm.
gonna see the light of day. It was just, here's how you structure a news story. Now go out and find one. Write it and then come back and then go out and do it again. And I loved it. I ate it up. And so the next semester, I applied to and was accepted to the daily newspaper, the Spartan Daily. And that was where I think like my story really changed. Um, because that semester you had a requirement where you needed to have, I think it was 10 stories published, and it was a pass or fail. 10 stories published, and it was a full time daily newspaper. The staff was about 45 on the editorial side, and then there was an ads staff of about 22. So it's a big, big paper, published 4 days a week in print, 1 day a week online. I loved it. I took assignments from all the editorial desks, um, and I wound up breaking the school record for the number of published stories that year, and I published 38 in one semester. Um, and all of
Yeah.
them, all of them had a minimum word requirement for column inches that I think it was around like 700 words or something like that, 700
Oof.
words.
Yeah.
Um, in addition to taking like a full course load that semester, I just like I caught fire. That was my thing. And
Yeah.
went from there and then became the first ever student to go from staff writer to editor in chief in one semester. So after that,
Wow. Nice.
yeah, yeah. After that, I threw my hat in the ring. I was like, I just want to, get used to it. And I had a really good pitch and I had a really good set of interviews. And so I made EIC and then hung around, took a semester off while I was EIC. And then I was a sports editor and a copy editor. And while I was doing that, I got introduced to the PR department at the 49ers because the kicker for the Niners at the time went to San Jose State. And I wanted to do a profile of him in the offseason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from there, I built some relationships with the public relations staff. And they said, hey, are you interested in becoming a full-time journalist or do you want to kind of check out sports? Now, mind you, I grew up playing football because I wanted to prove that I was tough. And I'm like, I
Right.
I think I think being in sports would be cool. So I applied to be a PR intern and went from San Jose State daily Spartan Daily newspaper to a full-time public relations intern for 2.5 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers. And that
Yeah.
was incredibly crazy. That was a crazy experience.
Now, how long did you date? Were you married by the time you went to the Niners, or what was
Man,
that
that's yeah, kind of
progression?
classic. Yeah. So my when I took that first
Because I'm like,
journalism class, kind of like
yeah,
I feel like I'm interviewing for a job.
yeah.
My first that first journalism class, there was a girl who sat next to me that ran cross country. And so, just by virtue of her sitting next to me, like we got paired up on various assignments and stuff like that. And she was like, oh, I'm a journalism major. I'm going to go out for the paper next year too. And, we both made it on as staff writers together. And she would bring her best friend, into the halls and we would walk by. And I was like, oh man, that girl's really cute. That friend is like, I really dig her. And slowly, like, we became friends over time. This person that I took the class with, her name is Lindsay. Lindsay and I become friends over time, and she's like, "Hey, I think you might like my friend, my roommate." I'm like, "Is it that like blonde girl that's been walking in the hall?" She's like, "Yeah, Laura." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I've seen her. Like, she's super cute. I would love to like be introduced." And she's like, "Oh, well, she's kind of like seeing this guy right now, and he's kind of a douche, but you know, like if that doesn't work out, like I'll introduce you guys." And so a little bit of time goes by and we're planning for the editorial run. And I go over to Lindsay's apartment, which is also Laura's apartment, and um they had like Laura and her other friend had like broken up or something, or like they weren't really an item. And so Lindsay introduces us, and Laura was like uninterested, didn't like complete cold shoulder, didn't give me the time of day. I'm like, all right, cool. But I was not
Like,
deterred. Few months later, she's like dating somebody else, and then that falls apart. And they're getting ready to go to the cross country team's like driving up to Oregon for a big race at the University of Oregon. And she was using Winamp, if you remember Winamp, Randy.
oh
Uh,
yes.
yes. So she was using Winamp to burn CDs for their road trip as a team.
Yeah.
And me, having grown up around technology, I'm like, I know so much about Winamp. And I've got great taste in music. So I sit down next to her and I'm like, hey, like, let me help you burn these CDs. Like, what do you like? I think we like the same kind of music. And I'm like trying so hard to connect.
Yeah.
Again,
Just get in the
complete,
door.
complete fucking cold shoulder, like annoyed that I'm even sitting there. And so then eventually we go to like play pool and I tell Lindsay, I'm like, I know that Laura's not seeing anybody. Invite her to come play pool with us. I'll bring a buddy of mine so it doesn't feel like it's, too crazy. Go to play pool. I make it on Laura's team. We hit it off. It's like, we're finishing each other's sentences, laughing at each other's jokes. I'm like, I'm in. Come to find out this entire time that like Laura thought I had a crush on Lindsay, her friend. And I don't know how those signals got, and I'm
Ah.
like, that's so wrong. Like, I've been wanting to go out on a date with you for like a year at this point, and then finally got up the guts to like ask her out on a date, and the rest is history. So we were dating for a couple of years at San Jose State, and then when I got the call um, at breakfast. I was eating breakfast in my apartment in San Jose, and Laura had come over to eat breakfast and get coffee. And I got the call from the VP of comms at the Niners. And I show Laura the number, and I'm like, oh my God, I think this is them calling me back. And I put it on speakerphone. And so that was cool. She got to like be there and hear the hey man, we'd like to
That's
offer you the
awesome.
yeah, it was pretty sweet. Yeah.
That's a good moment in front of the girl you like for sure.
Yeah, I think I scored
For
some
sure.
like, some points on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay. So then obviously you took it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then what and then how like so what how did that all progress?
Yeah. So being an intern in sports, you really have to want to be there for non-monetary reasons. And I have a lot of opinions, and we don't have enough podcasts for me to go through them all. Um,
Right.
but I learned over the course of time that I cared more about enjoying the things that I enjoyed about the sport rather than working in the sport. Because like it's like when you see how the
Mm,
sausage is made, it takes some of the magic away.
sure.
And um, it's tough because there's only 32 teams. Each PR department is about 10 people. So there are only
Yeah.
320 jobs in the whole NFL. And if you don't like how much you're getting paid, or if you don't like the hours, there's thousands of
There's a
other
thousand
people that
people in
are
the hall. Yeah.
exactly right.
Just waiting. That's
And
right.
there's just like,
That's right.
I made $8 an hour for 2.5 years. And I was still dating Laura the whole time. And I'm like, this is the girl I want to marry. And I know she'd be fine if I put a twist tie around her ring finger and asked her to marry me, but that's not what the woman I want to marry deserves. And I'm not going to sit
Yeah,
here
yeah,
covering up for DUIs by these players and other transgressions to try to make them look good for $8 an hour and some like
yeah,
logo shirts.
yeah,
Um, so I left.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
tough, but absolutely the right call.
Yeah, well, I think things worked out okay.
Yeah.
It seems
Let's
like
see.
it seems like things
19 years later, and two kids,
yeah.
you know,
Woo!
yeah, it was
So,
fun.
yeah, that's crazy. Um, my dad was a super big 49er fan. We used to go to, Sierra College and watch them do their spring
In
training and
training
stuff,
camp. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, we used to go watch that, and I hated football, like, I've always hated it, I never and but my dad would, like, loved it, and
Yeah.
so it eventually it just became a thing where we would use it as a fun thing, like, we would always bet him $1 that the Niners were gonna lose, and then we would vigorously root for the opposite team, like,
That's
it's
awesome.
just, stupid kid stuff, but
That's great
yeah,
though. I
but
love
he
that. Yeah.
no, no, he loved it. It was always so good. So, not I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of fast forwarding because a lot of life
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
happens in 19 years.
Yeah.
But I met you, um Well, I mean, for the longest time, I just knew you as Spazzy White Belt. I don't even
Yeah.
think I knew your name for the longest time.
Now and now I'm
Like
Spazzy
it's a
Purple Belt.
Spazzy Purple Belt. I just learned your name because I have to type it for the podcast description. Um, um, but what what possessed you to walk into a jujitsu gym
Yeah.
of all things?
This is something that I will never obviously ever forget. So one of the things that the audience, if you've been listening for a long time, you know, obviously if you know me personally, you know, I have two kids. My eldest, my daughter, was born with a disability. She was born with oculocutaneous albinism, or just what you might know as albino. And the thing that I didn't know about that until she was born was that um, your eyes don't develop in utero the same way if your body can't produce pigment. And what that means for my daughter is that she's legally blind and she knows how to read braille and she's got a white tip cane and gets around just great. She's amazing. She's doing incredible. But it means
Yeah.
that a lot of the things that
Well,
I grew up with in my childhood are completely inaccessible to her. She can't go play
mm,
softball because she can't see the ball. She can't go play basketball or soccer or any of these other ball sports.
right,
And
right,
so my wife and I are chatting about like, how do we get this kid moving? You know, what is something that she can do that gets her out of breath, gets her connected, builds a social circle. And we were like,
yeah,
well, martial arts would be kind of cool. But I was like, I don't want her having to worry about not being able to see whether or not she's going to get kicked in the face. Like that seems
right,
like a pretty important, you know, skill to have. But wrestling or jujitsu, actually the vision is, you know, not entirely required. And so
right, right.
the very first day that Sacramento County and Placer County reopened after COVID, my daughter and I walked into Aries Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in Roseville. And I had emailed
Mhm,
the owner, Julio, ahead of time. And I said, hey, uh, I'm this mediocre, washed up hobbyist athlete guy. And I have a daughter with a vision impairment. And we would love to try Jiu Jitsu if you guys would have her. And I got an email about 14 seconds later that said, she is welcome anywhere in our studio at any time. Let us know when you're going to be
yeah,
here. And I will never forget this as long as I live, because if you're in the vision community, it's so powerful and meaningful.
mm,
Anytime
yeah,
you walk into a new space and you have a vision impairment, you don't know who's there. All you know is the chaos of noise, right?
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
second, I swear to God, the second that we open the door, the owner and his girlfriend, they see Clara's white hair and they walk right up to her, get in her face, and they say, hey, Clara, I'm Brita. Hey, Clara, I'm Julio. Welcome. And I was like,
yeah,
I'm here for life. Whatever you like, I'm in. Whatever you want.
yeah,
I hadn't
yeah,
touched a gi at that point, but it was like they made it a point to be like, you welcome. We're here. And
yeah,
so I stayed
yeah,
there and watched them teach upas and like, you know, basics to Clara with her little gi on at 5 years old. And she didn't know what to do, but she moved her body and she loved it. And the promise that I
yeah.
made to her was anything that you do, I also will do. And
Oh,
so she got done with her class. And then I went through my very first jujitsu class. Little did I know that the first day after reopening from COVID is not necessarily white belt sign up day. It's everybody's dying to get back on the mat day. And so I was the only
we're
white
all
belt.
we're all salivating.
Yes. I was a first day trial class white belt, the first day reopening from COVID. And the young, like lowest belt other than me was a two-stripe purple belt who's now a black belt. And he's like 6'5",
Yeah,
260. And uh,
yeah, yeah,
accidentally broke my rib about 4 seconds into the roll.
sure.
So
That'll happen.
yeah.
That
And
guy
then
sounds like a real animal. Somebody
yeah.
should really keep that guy in a in a cage or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that guy broke my nose once too, but he denies it, but I'm
So
pretty sure it happened when I heard the cracking sound when his knee hit my face, but I don't
right.
wanna cast blame on anyone.
I remember looking down and like my shirt is like poking out this way, and I'm like, pretty sure that's not what it looked like when I walked in here. But I was
Yeah,
hooked.
and I think, it's an unfortunate thing, right? The sort of white belts coming into an established community because so many people quit, right? So
So
you just
many.
assume you just assume that the white belts are going to quit, right? So it's like
Yeah.
hard to really want to like where I start really
Invest.
investing in people is like after they get their blue belt, right? Cuz I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I feel like if I can get you to understand that this is going to be hard, but it's worth it, but you can't really, you're just like flailing and surviving as a white belt, and
Yeah.
then on top of that, right, you come in and you get injured. So I don't see you for a long period of time.
Right.
Right. And then
Right.
between those times when you're recovering from injuries or whatever,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it was a quite a while before I even started like marking you as a person who was coming
Yeah.
regularly, just
Yep. It's funny.
it just
I do
was.
recall that because at the time you were like a 3 or 4 stripe blue belt, and you obviously had a lot of grappling experience, and you were coaching the kids' classes. And
Yeah.
I remember having a couple of roles with you, and me being that same, like having that personality type of like, I've got to figure this out. Like I cannot stop until I've got it figured out.
Yeah.
That was what led me to show up all the time. And so
Yeah.
I remember I'm like, I can't figure out how to do these triangles. Like it's not working, it's not fitting. And then we were training together, and I'm like, I just can't do it because your shoulders are too broad. That's got to be the only reason. And I remember you looked at me and you were like, uh-huh, that's got to be it. That sounds
I
right.
mean, bro, like I get it, bro.
Now you're like walking off,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
and jujitsu, right? And they talk about it's such a cliche to say everybody's on their own journey, but I mean, it truly is. As much as you can't really do it alone, right? You cannot ever develop the level of proficiency to get through to a black belt level, certainly on your own, right? There's just no way.
Yeah.
But um, but you still have to. It's still a mental game for you every minute of every day, getting yourself to class and preparing yourself for what's coming, and especially in the beginning, knowing that what's coming is that you're gonna feel worse than you do right now when you leave tonight,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
For 6
100%.
months or a year, you're gonna feel worse.
This is just the way that I am now.
It's just the way I am, right?
Yeah.
I'm limping.
Yeah.
But then you realize that like that during that time, what you were doing was you were building muscle, right? You were
Mhm.
building muscle memory. It's such an interesting thing because part of what got me into jujitsu, we've talked about, was that accident that I was in, the car
Yeah.
accident, and it took me off of my left leg completely. So the muscles in my left leg atrophied like down to the point where I had almost no inner calf muscle, right? But after jujitsu, I haven't developed that muscle back, but I developed different muscles in my calves. And actually, my left leg is stronger than my right in terms of how I pivot off of things. And my right
Mm,
leg is actually like more frozen and hard and not as flexible because I used it as a cane for 20 years.
that's
Like
crazy. It's like a
the
peg leg.
compensations are it's literally was like that. Which so I got hip problems. I can't bend that knee all the way down. I can't get into a full kneel. But I made it to brown belt and developed a
Yeah.
game completely around those things,
Yeah.
which is the crazy thing about
I,
jujitsu, right? It
100%. It's wild to me because it's like you hear the term changing goalposts, and it has such a negative connotation. And
yeah.
from that, like the second that I got back from that first day of class, the old me with an injury would have been like, all right, I got to take a few weeks off and, this isn't really for me. But I was so driven by the curiosity of how did that happen? How did like so many questions that I needed answers to? And it changed
Yeah.
the goalposts over time from what I thought would break me to what actually might break me. And I've yet to find the
Mm.
thing in jujitsu that will actually break me. Not because it's some tough guy sport or anything like that, but because you meet people that are there with you through every step of the way on that suffering. And you realize
Yeah.
that when you're in this process of trying to get your black belt and trying to progress, that you're not doing it alone. And now that's what
Yeah.
moves the goal. That's what moves the goalposts. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been hurt. Randy's reached out and been like, "Hey man, you doing okay? How can we get you training today?" Right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, so you mean I'm not broke? I don't need to quit?" Right? And so I think that's what makes jujitsu so
Yeah.
unique is that it
Yeah.
changes the goalposts for what breaks you because of the
Yeah.
community that is around you while you go on that journey.
It's such an understated thing how transformational it is for you, like, mentally and emotionally and spiritually, right? Like, we talk about
Totally.
the physical, but just how different of a person, how you even think about things, how you manage your feelings, how you deal with panic and anxiety, how
Right.
you deal with people trying to rile you up and people being angry, and how you
Yeah.
deal with being patient and learning how to breathe when you're uncomfortable. And like, we talk about that stuff all the time, but man, I literally am like a different person inside and out. Like I realize that there are people in my life that I haven't talked to in the period that I've done jujitsu, right? Like I have people that I haven't talked to for over 10 years that never knew me with jujitsu. They only knew me giant and crippled and frustrated and
I wouldn't
having
even
trouble
recognize you on the
breathing.
street.
Wouldn't even recognize me, right? Like
Yeah.
completely different. Um, Man, for me, the thing that I have experienced the most is just gratitude. I really
Yeah,
felt
same.
like it literally feels like I was walking the Green Mile and then the governor called. You know what I mean?
I'm tired,
That's what it
boss.
felt like. I'm tired. Dog tired. Yeah, 100%. So, dude, we're gonna have to do a part two, I think, because
Yeah, I think so too.
we haven't even scratched the surface. We didn't even get into why you're on the podcast, um,
Round 2.
but like round two, uh, I'll do a little bit of foreshadowing, so that we can prepare people. What maybe we'll do is let's try to do part two next week, so they're back to
Yeah.
back, right? We can
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
tell the rest of the
Serialize
story,
it.
and we'll
Yep.
we'll serialize it. So a little foreshadowing. What we're gonna talk about in the next episode is, we've talked about, and actually, it was such a fantastic way to start this episode, but just talking about like religious differences and those kind of things. But there are also political differences, and there's also family dynamic differences, and there's,
Yeah.
perspective and experience and all these things. And when I was starting this podcast, I really, really wanted someone who would be able to push back on me a little bit, who I didn't want it to be an echo chamber for my feelings and my thoughts, right? Just for two guys to be on here with me going, "Yeah, Randy, what you said, like, yeah, you're right on." Like, I didn't want
Totally.
that. Because I don't find that interesting, right?
Yeah,
Like, it's not interesting
yeah.
to me at all. Um, but and then we'll talk about this more too. Again, still a little foreshadowing, but Kris came up in a very non-confrontational environment, and so it was kind of an interesting surprise slash shock to get to that place where I was like, "All right, we're gonna get a little pushback," and Kris was kind of going, "I'm not sure if I exactly think of that the same way that you do." And I'm like,
I
"What?"
I even think that was, like, a little bit strong of an impersonation. It was probably
it,
like,
it
"Oh,
was,
I don't know, I mean,
it
some people
was.
might disagree."
I've heard other people say that they don't think the exact same way that you're expressing yourself right now.
That's it. That's exactly it. Mm.
But over the course of doing the podcast, Kris has really developed, a confidence in being able to come out and say, like, I just blatantly disagree with that. And that's okay because we love each other and we respect each
Yep.
other and, and we care about how each other feels. And honestly, like, I really want to learn from you. Not that I want you to teach me how to
Same.
live, but I want
Right.
to I want to learn from you what a natural perspective is that is as natural and honest and embedded in you as my convictions and thoughts and feelings are in me, and
Yep.
like
Yep.
I don't want to take it for granted that everybody has their own set of those, right? And so again, we're not going to dive into it now. But on the next episode next week, we'll dive into a little bit more, just sort of the importance of being able to, speak your mind and embrace your truth, and not be ashamed to be who you are, and not to be ashamed to let people see you grow and get better. Because honestly, that you did. I keep coming back to that first time it happened where you made this face like, okay, you know what? I think we've done it. I'm gonna roll my sleeves up here. We're gonna have, and I was so excited. Like I was so
Yeah.
excited and just like, yes, okay, this is gonna
Yeah.
be like gritty, whatever this is.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that next week. But
You talk
I
about the
always
green room
just
conversation that we had after too.
yeah, because I think that's huge and important.
Exactly.
And so we'll talk about all that. It's going to be an amazing second part of this conversation. So we'll wrap it up here. We're not going to put a ribbon on it. We're going to put it to be continued until next week. But regardless, I always just want to end the show with gratitude. Kris, you're a great dude. I appreciate you being here. This has been super fun talking to you. I can't wait to do part two. And I'm so grateful that you were there from the beginning, helping me get Sweeter After Difficulty stood up and running, and that we've been able to grow together in jujitsu and friendship. And
Yeah.
it's just been a really great blessing in my life having you around. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks
Yeah.
for everything.
Right back at you. I owe you a lot, my friend.
Yeah. Ah, yeah, it's great. It's great stuff. So anyway, if you have not already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Do all the stuff like, notifications, set them, share, all that stuff. But, we're grateful that you're here. We're grateful that you're part of our community. We love having these conversations and we love having them with you too. So until next week, I am Randy. This is Kris. This was Sweeter After Difficulty. We'll see you next week.
See ya.